Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. Today we're talking about top 10 running backs for fantasy football 2020. The early list, guys, it is still early. It's the end of April. So I'm going to give you a list now that the NFL draft is done. It's complete. I know where the depth charts are kind of sitting. Mind you, when training camp starts and all that, some running backs, especially the rookies, may emerge on the top of the depth charts. As of right now, late April, we don't know. But I've got a list of top 10 running backs that is solid based on volume, attempts, minimal committee, upside. Everything is here for you in this list. I'm so excited to get to it. So let's not waste any time. Top 10 running backs 2020. Let's go.
Hey, it's Josh Jacobs, and you're listening to the Fantasy Football Counselor.
Welcome to the show, everybody. Joseph Robert, the fantasy football counselor. We're doing one of my favorite episodes, the top 10 running backs for fantasy football 2020. The early April list. Now, this list should hold its own well into the summer. Now, again, some of these rookie running backs have come in, emerge at the top of the depth charts, and there's a chance that some of these guys could crack the top 10. But the list I'm giving you here is not copy and paste from last year. This is not the fantasy football consensus running back rankings. This is not it. What this is well thought out, researched analysis of running backs that could really finish in the top 10 based on talent, volume, opportunity, minimal committee. This is it. This is the golden grail. This is the ultimate running back list for fantasy football 2020 when it comes to running backs, the top 10. Before I get into this, guys, there's a link below. Get your Lion shirt, guys. Just created the Lion shirt brand. I mean, all you guys, if you're listening to me, obviously you're Lions. I hope most of you guys are anyway. We get a couple sheep that linger in here once in a while, especially in the comments. It happens, right? Not everybody can be a Lion. So with the Lion mentality shirts, guys, available at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Also a link below. And of course, guys, this is, again, the ultimate solution, guys. The best solution for fantasy football, the 16-round draft solution. I'm telling you guys, I've created this, the first ever and only video training. I put a lot of time, a lot of effort into it. Sleepers, breakouts. I got some dynasty rankings in there and all the optimal players to draft in each round. Guys, this is huge. 16-round draft solution, the first ever and only video trading. Head on over to thefantasyfootballcounselor.com. Also, link below. Guys, this is the solution. It's going to answer your questions for everything fantasy football to help you guys with your year-long leagues. 16 rounds, get it below. All right, top 10 running backs. I'm so excited. Let's just get to it. I can't contain it anymore. All right, so first running back on the list, it's Saquon Barkley. I'm going to tell you guys why I love Saquon Barkley so much for fantasy football 2020. Number one, going back to 2018, this guy was a top finisher. 385 PPR points, absolute monster beast. There's no denying, you guys can debate me, all day long. There's no denying that Saquon Barkley is the most physically gifted running back in the NFL right now. So we can't really deny that. You guys can come at me, you can tell me other guys, but this guy is it, okay? Now, last year finished 10th in PPR. This is very important. I want you guys to note this. 10th in PPR amongst running backs. This is very important. And that was with 13 games, a terrible O-line, and again, Daniel Jones just getting into his own. This year, Daniel Jones now going into his second year. There's some comfort with him and Saquon Barkley. Hopefully, Saquon Barkley, I've got him number one, assuming, knock on wood, he stays healthy, everything's okay, right? We don't want him to get injured, knock on wood. Imagining he finishes 16 games. Now they've beefed up the O-line too. This is a really good thing, okay? They went 3 offensive linemen in the NFL draft for 2020. They went Andrew Thomas, with their first pick, fourth overall. They went Matt Pert in the 3rd round. And they went Shane Lemieux. Okay, they went Shane Lemieux in the 5th round. So they've beefed up that O-line. They got some help where they needed it. This is definitely, especially with Andrew Thomas there. I mean, the guy's a monster. He's going to open things up for Saquon Barkley. Now, my only concern a little bit is they didn't really address the wide receiver position. But again, I'm not too concerned. I still think, Saquon could see some stacked boxes. But if anyone's going to overcome that, it's going to be Saquon. I still think they're going to have a pretty good offense overall. And I think Saquon, again, based on volume opportunity, he's going to get it. He's got no one to contend with. He's got Deion Lewis and Gallman. Who cares, right? He's going to be the guy. And again, people are saying, Lewis, right? but Lewis was behind Henry. It didn't affect him. So knock on wood, it doesn't affect Saquon Barkley. And the reason I went with him at 1 is because the ceiling is high. Okay, so there's a high ceiling there. What goes up must come down. Now, he had a mediocre year, top 10, still good, but there's still a ton of room for him to go up. I love Saquon Barkley at number 1, okay? Number 2, Derrick Henry. I'll tell you why I like Derrick Henry at number 2. And again, this is not your consensus rankings list. There's going to be some players here like, why aren't they in my top 10? This and that. Why aren't they first? I'm gonna explain it as I go along. So stick with me, guys. This is why you got to subscribe. And of course, comment, engage. Let's interact. But you got to subscribe because I'm out here lion mentality, breaking away from the sheep. And I don't just break away from the sheep just to be different. I break away from the sheep because every year the rankings come out, right? And they basically copy and paste pretty much from last year. But every year the results are different, right? So when I do a list, I try to compensate for where those differences are. So it's not going to be direct copy and paste, but I'm sitting in there and I'm compensating where they may go wrong. Guys, I'm really honed in and focused on fantasy. This is my life. I live and breathe fantasy. I'm honed in on fantasy football to help you guys win. My genuine mission is for you guys to not only win, but dominate your leagues, embarrass your friends. Number 2, I've got Derrick Henry. I'll tell you why. Number 1 attempts last year, number 1 rushing, right? 1,540 rushing yards, phenomenal, 16 touchdowns. Now, here's the thing with this guy, okay? Here's what I like about him. He hasn't been paid. Now, I feel bad for him. He hasn't been paid the mega contract, I should say. Now he signed a $10 million one-year deal, which is great. But the fact of the matter is he hasn't really been paid that mega contract, which tells me that he's still hungry, okay? And that is something that I think is really going to help motivate him because he's like, dudes, I finished like number 1 in rushing. I crushed it, 16 touchdowns on the ground. I dominated. I finally imposed my will on defenders. By the way, going back to last year, I was the only guy that had Derrick Henry in my top 6 running back. I think I got him 5th or 6th. Nobody else had him in the top 10 because I watched the tape on him and I watched near the end of the season before that where, he talked to Eddie George. Eddie George's like, listen, you got to impose your will on defenders. And I was telling everybody, Derrick Henry, you got to draft him. Now everybody's riding the Henry train after I'd already told everybody Derrick Henry, okay? So why do I like him? Well, let's talk about it. Isaiah Wilson was drafted. They beefed up the O-line even more. He hasn't been incentivized. He's an absolute monster. And overall, if you look at the situation, which I'm going to get to my third guy next, it hasn't changed much. The landscape hasn't changed enough to really say, okay, this is going to significantly change Derrick Henry. He's still hungry. He's still amazing. They helped the O-line. Tannehill's still there. So some of the key ingredients of that formula, or most of the key ingredients of that formula that made Derrick Henry of 2019 is going to continue on in 2020 and 2021 and really help Derrick Henry solidify his role. And I still think there's a higher ceiling for this guy. I love Derrick Henry. I'm debating whether he might be even first overall. That's how much I love him. Saquon Henry, 1-2-2-1. Can't complain. Coming at number 3, and again, here's where I get a little pissed off when you're talking about top 10 running backs and when you're looking at fantasy football RB rankings. Here's what I get a little annoyed with, guys. Christian McCaffrey, okay, let's talk about him. Everybody's got him first overall. Where a majority of people do, the mainstream consensus rankings have him at first overall. Before I get into this, I want to tell you that the last time anybody finished 2 years in a row at the running back position in fantasy points, 2 years in a row, number 1, was Priest Holmes back in 2000, 2003. It's very rare that a guy that finishes on top 1 year finishes on top again this year. And to solidify my point here, I got to say what goes up must come down. Record year for CMC, phenomenal. Number 1 in fantasy points, 471 points. An absolute monster all around, a receiving monster. I think he had, 116 receptions on 141 targets and 1,000 receiving yards for 4 receiving touchdowns and 15 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, how do you even top that again? Especially now when you've got a new quarterback. Okay, they've got Bridgewater in there. Yes, they're saying that, he's going to throw it to CMC a lot. Very possible, but that's all hypothetical. And now they've got Anderson now to stretch the field a little bit, and you could say that could open up holes for CMC, and I totally understand that as well. But if the Carolina Panthers want to make it to the playoffs and want to win a Super Bowl, they cannot rely on one piece. Now, I play chess. If you guys play chess, you understand, guys, there's several pieces in there. There's pawns, there's rooks, there's knights, there's bishops, there's kings, there's queens. Everybody's got a role. So if you're just using one piece, the defense is going to realize, hey, that's their focal point. We got to take them down. We got to neutralize the one piece. Then you're SOL, right? So when you look at Christian McCaffrey, you got to say, hey, man, pinnacle year, no way but down. And I've got him to third. I'm not saying it's going to be a bust, but I'm saying, there's other guys that can merge above him, and I think Henry and Saquon are the guys to do it. CMC at number 3. Coming at number 4, guys. And again, I'm a little concerned about this guy only because of Pollard. There's the Pollard effect. Pollard last year, and the guy I'm talking about is Ezekiel Elliott coming at number 4, okay? Zeke Elliott is solid and consistent. He's a workhorse. Derrick Henry was the guy that was number 1 in attempts last year, and Zeke was number 2. He had 301. Just let me filter again and confirm that. Yeah, so it was Zeke Elliott with 301 attempts. Now, when you're looking at Zeke Elliott, you got to look at a guy who is a workhorse, who's on a team that's going to feed him the ball. Now, they did get CeeDee Lamb, so they are going to be going to their wide receivers a lot more, which is very interesting. It could help them again because it could open things up, but it also could mean that they're throwing the ball a lot more. By the way, love Dak Prescott this year. He's got a ton of targets, okay? Now, the Cowboys did get an O-lineman, a center, in the 4th round, which could help Zeke a little bit more as well. But I love him. Listen, he's going to get the target. He's safe and secure. Pollard, 86 attempts, 455 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. Again, took away 400-plus yards. I get it. It's a little worrisome. And again, Pollard could come in a little bit more. But, I mean, they paid Zeke. They got to use him, okay? They want to win a Super Bowl. They got the weapons. You're going to play your best player. That's the bottom line. So I do still like Zeke at 4th, continuing to get the volume. And, again, 301 attempts. Even if that drops to, like, 250 attempts as a floor, still not bad. So you're guaranteed that production. That's why you cannot deny Zeke Elliott a top 5 spot based on volume, attempts, previous history, talent, and durability. Absolutely love Zeke Elliott, okay? Coming in at number 5. Now, this is going to turn a lot of heads. What are you doing, Joe? Raise a lot of eyebrows. And I get it. I understand. That's fine. I don't care. Because, again, I'm compensating for, things that could rise, that could fall. So, the guy I got at number 5, again, it's going to shock a lot of people. That's okay. No problem. The guy I'm looking at is David Johnson. Now, here's why I love David Johnson so much. Go back to 2016. Yeah, Joe, you keep reliving the past. It was 2016. I get it, guys. But listen, David Johnson, I met him. And you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, Joe, you met him. You're biased. No, listen. I met him. This guy's got a lot of really good work ethic, and he's dealt with haters his entire life. This guy got screwed in Arizona, got sidelined, okay, for a guy who's not as good as him, and he was doing relatively well prior to getting benched in fantasy. He was putting up some solid mid-range, low-end RB1 numbers. The guy was pretty damn good for fantasy football. And then he got sidelined. That's got to be a huge blow to your ego, to your personality, and that's got to also put a chip on your shoulder and say, hey, man, I'm going to crush it this year. I'm going to dominate football. Prior to going into last year, he said he was one of the best running backs in the game. I still think he's got that. Now, here's the nice thing about it, okay? He's with the Texans, a team that believes in, who didn't acquire another running back there. So there's really no committee there with David Johnson that's going to affect him. He's going to be the workhorse. Hyde is no longer there with the Texans. The good news, again, Hyde had 245 attempts, 6 touchdowns, and 1,000 yards, over 1,000 yards. And that's Carlos Hyde. He sucks. David Johnson is a top 5 running back talent-wise, guys. And a lot of people say he was sluggish last year and he was terrible. But listen, I'll tell you something. If you know, for example, if you're working at a company, let's do an analogy. If you're working for somebody, whatever, let's use a grocery store, for example, okay? You're working at a grocery store, you're a manager, and all of a sudden you get word from corporate that you're going to be released. Would you, some people would, and I'm not saying you should slack, but a lot of people are like, okay, well, I don't really care about this job. I'm not going to put everything I got into it. I'm getting fired. Corporate just called. Same type of thing with David Johnson. He must have heard or found out that he was moving on, replaced. He's like, I'm not going to give these guys my all. I'm not going to run as hard as I can. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to preserve my body for a team that believes in me, that is the Texans. So again, David Johnson, I absolutely love. Okay, now they did get a center in the 4th round, so they did help the O-line a little bit. I like him. I like David Johnson. There's a ton of opportunity, a ton of upside, a ton of volume, and again, the chip on his shoulder. He's got to solidify the RB1 role, and the advantage is he's a fantasy football sleeper this year. I think he's going to be going in the 3rd, 4th round. you can steal this guy. And again, I talked about this in my 16-round draft session. You got to get it, guys, because I'm literally honed in and focused. And I'm going to make sure your roster's optimized in every single round. This isn't a draft kit. This isn't copy and paste rankings, guys. This is honed in and focused advice at each position. I absolutely love David Johnson for Fantasy Football 2020. Make sure you target him, okay? And now again, based on ADP, this is not ADP rankings. This is running backs I like. He could go less, and you can get some of the guys I list below ahead of him and then still get David Johnson, okay? So be aware of that. Okay, coming in number 6, Josh Jacobs. We're going to move through these guys relatively quicker. Listen, I love it. There's going to be less stacked boxes. The Raiders did draft Ruggs and Lynn Bowden, 2 wide receivers. One was drafted in the first round, one was in the third. Ruggs is a burner. He's going to stretch the field a little bit. Josh Jacobs, less stacked boxes. And he's got no committee here, guys. Who's got? Jalen Richard behind him. Not concerned at all, guys, okay? So Josh Jacobs is definitely going to eat. I'm telling you, they did draft that O-line John Simpson in the 4th round. And again, got those 2 wide receivers. I absolutely love Josh Jacobs. I think the ceiling is high in the receiving game, in the running game, in the attempts game. So if you're looking at Josh Jacobs, this is a guy you can get. Now, he didn't finish the greatest. He finished 21st last year in PPR points. I understand, but he did play 13 games. He still had over 1,150. He had 1,150 rushing yards, 4.8 yards per carry, and 7 touchdowns. But this year, now he's fully integrated, and they actually have wide receivers that are going to threaten the secondary, right? Less stacked boxes. Love Jacobs at 6. Definitely target him. Coming at number 7, Leonard Fournette. Just talked to my contact with the Jacksonville Jaguars, one of the top influencers, UCF Jaguar, and he just told me, man, this is going to be a huge year for Leonard Fournette because he's got to perform. Okay, there was talk. Now, by the time you listen to this, maybe a trade was done. But from what I'm hearing and what we saw with the draft, Leonard Fournette is staying in Jacksonville. Okay, again, this is late April. I'm going to be updating the top 10 list. Leonard Fournette is staying in Jacksonville. He finished 7th in PPR last season with 3 touchdowns, okay, over 1,000 yards. This year, he has to perform. That's the bottom line, guys. He had 265 attempts. That's going to go up. He had 3 touchdowns. That's going to go up. But the Jacksonville Jaguars may want to trade him. He may want to prove a case for another team because Jacksonville's shown that they're not interested. And if he wants to get paid a big contract from another team, he has to perform. This is the year of his life. So, I think he could be even higher than this. He could be a top 3 running back if healthy. And the nice thing is, guys, the Jacksonville Jaguars now got Laviska Shenault. They've got an ace wide receiver potentially that's really going to stretch the field, open things up for Leonard Fournette, who could definitely be a top 5 finisher, but I got him in at number 7. I love Leonard Fournette. Target him in all platforms, standard and PPR. By the way, this list is in PPR, 1 point. Next guy I've got is Alvin Kamara. Guys, what you see is what you get. 171 attempts, 797 rushing yards. This guy's always going to get around 70 to 80 receptions. He went down a little bit. He finished 9th in PPR. Could be a little bit higher, but he's always a top 10 finisher. Now, I understand Latavius Murray's there. Not really a concern because, again, what you see is what you get. He was a little bit lower in the rankings. Could have finished a little bit higher. Breeze was a little banged up in a couple games. Maybe that affected him a little bit. But listen, love Alvin Kamara. I think the ceiling is still high. The talent is there. I mean, they also got Cesar Ruiz at center, could help Kamara a little bit more. A lot of pluses here for Alvin Kamara going into 2020 fantasy football. A running back that's going to be safe and secure. And if you can get him in the 2nd round, bonus. Try to go ahead and do that. But again, love him. Coming in at number 9, love this guy as well. And I know you guys keep giving me the arthritis excuse, but listen. Atlanta Falcons, they believe in him. They did not acquire another running back. The only guys he's got behind him is Ito Smith and Brian Hill. The guy I'm talking about is Todd Gurley. Listen, this guy's an absolute monster still. I don't care any way you slice it and dice it. Finished 14th in PPR last year on a team that didn't start working until like mid to late season. 12 touchdowns on the ground. I mean, the guy's an absolute monster. There's nothing saying he can't have a good year. Mind you, he didn't break 1,000 rushing yards that last season, which is great, which is going to lower his ADP this season. That's fine. Finished 14th last year, again in PPR. He's going to be the focal point of the Falcons' offense. And the way that they've designed their offense this year is they want to win a Super Bowl. Ryan's getting older. He's got to go all out. They did draft a center, Matt Hennessy, in the 3rd, improve that O-line a little bit. High-octane offense. He's going to get all the goal line work predicated. He's healthy. Absolutely love Todd Gurley this year. Bounce back year. And a guy you can definitely get. And I think a lot of people will be sleeping on him. Todd Gurley, man, oh man, oh man. Probably going to be a third-round pick. Love him. Coming at number 10, this was a very hard decision, and this is going to change. There's a couple guys that were honorable mentions at 10 that could easily crack the top 10. And there, again, some of these rookie running backs could come in and crack the top 10. Guys like Jonathan Taylor, guys like DeAndre Swift, and guys like Cam Akers, if and only if they become workhorses and they've got the talent to potentially be workhorses, because the guys behind them aren't really phenomenal. I mean, Darrell Henderson with the Rams, not exciting. Cam Akers could take that job. Kerryon Johnson can't stay healthy. He's not that good. He kind of sucks. So you got him. I mean, Swift could take that job. And then you've got Jonathan Taylor. Marlon Mack sucks. And you guys can say, well, Marlon Mack doesn't suck. Dude, he's just an average running back. Hasn't done anything phenomenal. He's not that good. Jonathan Taylor could be a workhorse running back. Again, we don't know. So based on that, and also David Montgomery, another guy in a good position who had 240 plus attempts, that's going to go up this year as well. They could crack the top 10. Le'Veon Bell could crack the top 10. Austin Eckler could crack the top 10. There's a couple guys. It's very tough to decide, but the guy I got in the top 10 shows a lot of promise and shows a lot of upside. The guy I'm talking about is Miles Sanders. Now, this is the nice thing about it. I'm going to take a look at the Eagles draft right now. Okay? I'm going to pull it up. This guy has such a high ceiling. Actually, I apologize. They did get Sean Bradley in the 6th round. That's what I was double checking. I thought they did a 6th round. I mean, who pays attention after the 2nd round? You could debate that with Tom Brady because he was drafted later. I get it. So they did draft. I want to note this. Sean Bradley. Correction. They did draft Sean Bradley. I love Miles Sanders because Sean Bradley, 6th round, I don't feel he's a threat. They've got Scott there. Miles Sanders is their guy, okay? That's the number one thing. Finished 15th in PPR last season, 179 attempts, 800 plus rushing yards, 50 receptions, 509 receiving yards, 3 receiving touchdowns. But the thing about him is that he came alive near the end of the season, showed promise, and now they've got receivers, they've got Carson Wentz hopefully back healthy. Listen, this is the year they could do it. They drafted Jalen Reagor in the 1st round with the 21st pick. I love Miles Sanders, a guy that's got a high ceiling and could be the workhorse running back for the Eagles. Again, this 10th spot or guys that could slide in the top 10 could happen. Jonathan Taylor, another guy, Cam Akers. But again, it's very early right now to really gauge who's climbing up the depth charts if they're a rookie to see. The guys that are here have pretty much solidified their spot on the depth chart and are going to be set for a ton of targets. I absolutely love this list. Let me repeat this list. Saquon Barkley at 1, Derrick Henry at 2, Christian McCaffrey at 3, Ezekiel Elliott at 4, David Johnson at 5, Josh Jacobs at 6, Leonard Fournette at 7, Alvin Kamara at 8, Todd Gurley at 9, Miles Sanders at 10. Honorable mentions, David Montgomery, Austin Eckler, Le'Veon Bell, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, and even Clyde Edwards-Helaire and DeAndre Swift. All guys that could crack the top 10. The ceiling is there for any of these guys, but we don't know. Here's a fantasy football draft tip, fantasy football draft advice, fantasy football draft strategy, whatever you want to call it. But when you're looking at these rookies, make sure you snipe them around earlier before their ADP, and you get a ton of upside. Okay, there's a draft tip for you. Do a lot of mock drafts, get a feel, and then snipe these guys, the Jonathan Taylors of the world, a little bit before, and you'll do very, very well. All right, guys, the top 10 running backs, Fantasy Football 2020, the early list. There you have it. Smash the thumbs up. Leave a comment. What do you think of the list? Love to hear your feedback and get the 16-round draft solution at thefantasyfootballcounselor.com or a link below. Appreciate you guys being here. And get your Lion shirt, guys. These are pretty damn cool. A Lion mentality. We'll talk soon. Subscribe. I am out.